Hello and welcome to the video. In this video I'm going to be discussing my trip to Germany since I've had about a month now to actually process it and think it through. So first things first, I just want to get like a couple things out of the way, right? So a lot of people have made comments on the video saying that I did a lot during that trip. I didn't plan any of this trip. I went with my high school, and if you don't know, I graduated back in May of this year. So I was able to go with on this trip. So everything on this trip was planned ahead of time, and I kind of knew what we were all doing and kind of like where the cities we were going to. And there were about 20 others, with there being like 5 or 6 or so chaperones, like teachers and other adults. And I get it, it was a lot of stops, it was a lot to take in, especially with every 2 days or so us being, having a full train day where we are traveling and we are pretty much on the trains all day. So I obviously did fly to Germany, with me being from the US. This was my first international trip and I have never been outside the country before. So we took Iceland Air. Obviously I didn't get that choice, with this being planned ahead of time by a teacher. It was about a 7-hour flight to Iceland. It was overnight going there and daytime coming back. I don't know if I would ever want to make that trip again for a long time now, so it's going to be a little bit before I end up going anywhere else on a plane. And then from Iceland, it was about 2 to 3 hours going to Germany. So it wasn't too bad with that second leg of the trip. When we did get there, immediately to leave the airport, we did actually all get onto a train. I've been on a train once before, and it was more of like an experience, not like actual you're going somewhere, you're traveling. So I had never actually like been on like a commuter train before. And so that first train that we took from the airport was an ice train. Every other experience other than that, with the first time, I did not like experiences with the ice train, mainly because they were always so crowded, and obviously you have the reserved seating system, which we couldn't use. And so obviously also when we were using ice trains, we were traveling a longer distance, so we had our bags with us, some of us 2 suitcases and a backpack, and it was not ideal, obviously, trying to maneuver through the train, and sometimes not even having a seat and having to stand or sit in the hallway. It was definitely a nice thing to be able to get a pass on our phones and then use the train. It was really easy, especially, having to switch trains, having to, be able to see the schedule of when the train would show up and when it would depart. I did get a question asking how fast was the fastest train that I was on. It was an ice train. It was when I was leaving Cologne, and it was getting up to 300 kilometers per hour or 186 miles per hour, which, that's kind of fast for it, just being a regular train. And also that train was really full, so it was kind of good that they were, trying to get us to the next stop. So next I'm going to talk about food, and obviously with it being a different country, there's going to be a lot of different food to try, but obviously with me only being there for 2 weeks and obviously being on trains for most of the time, I only did get to try a couple things. The first thing that I really actually got to try is like a meal that wasn't from a prepackaged grocery store, obviously, like chips or something, was Käsespätzle. Obviously it's cheese and noodles. The first time that I had it, it had onions in it too, mixed in with the noodles. It was okay. I had other times that I was able to try it too, and obviously those other times were better than that first time. I also got to try currywurst, which I love curry. I think that was actually one of my favorite things that I got to try. Then I had, near the end of the trip, I got to try opatsta, which is like cheese, and I got a piece of bread with it, and it had some vegetables too, which was also really good. And then when we were in Nuremberg, me and my mom ordered a pizza, and it said it would be spicy. It had spicy pepperoni on it. To both of us, I was just eating like a regular pepperoni pizza. There was no spice to it, which I found with a lot of food in Germany. It said it would be spicy, and it would literally be like no spice whatsoever. And then obviously, you go to other countries, there's going to be a McDonald's there. So I think the first night, everybody, unless they went, to a different restaurant, I'm pretty sure everybody went to a McDonald's, which they had a couple things that were kind of different. They did have like a different McFlurry flavor that obviously wasn't in the US. They did have wraps, which are actually now back in the US. They were brought back. But my favorite thing that is not in the US that I got to try in Germany was the curry sauce. I literally got that every time. No matter what I had curry sauce with it. With fries, with chicken nuggets. One of the best things I think I've ever had from McDonald's is curry sauce. Also with fast food, I got to go to a Nordsee, which it's pretty much just, like, if you're familiar with Popeyes, that's kind of what it is. I got a box with popcorn, shrimp, and fries, I'm pretty sure. It was actually really good. I actually got that in Salzburg. Speaking of fries, wherever we went, there was obviously a lot of fries. For some reason, I don't know why, but they were always so good. Like, they actually kept really well, better than, if you were to go, like, to a McDonald's here or a different place and get fries, they wouldn't keep well, like, because we obviously didn't have refrigerators in our rooms, which I'll get to when I talk more about hotels, but, like, they were always so crispy and, like, soft on the inside, and they were always seasoned so well, whereas, like, sometimes here you'll just literally, it'll be too much salt or not enough, or it's literally just awful fries. And then we also got to try Nutella ice cream from a grocery store. We got that from an Aldi, I have to say it. But that was really good. It was literally one of them little pints of ice cream, and it was some of the best ice cream I think I've ever had. They do eat a lot of Nutella over there. My German teacher did talk about this. Germans do eat a lot of Nutella, but they don't eat a lot of peanut butter. And then when I was there, I didn't see any peanut butter in any of the grocery stores that I went to. And then I also had ramen there. Obviously, it was from a ramen shop, I guess, to say. They pretty much just sold ramen and other food. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't some of the best ramen that I've had. I've only gone to a few ramen shops. There are only a few ramen shops around where I live. But I feel like the ones that are here, obviously they're actually spicy here. People know what spicy is. But I think the thing that I ordered wasn't too spicy, and I mean, it was good, but it was okay. I didn't really care for it. I don't know if I would go back and order the same exact thing ever again. Speaking of Aldi, now I'm going to talk about grocery stores. I did actually have an opportunity to go to a Netto, a Penny, and an Aldi. Aldi was obviously my favorite, but there were a couple differences. Obviously, alcohol is pretty much just out in the open and anyone can go get it. Also, their drinking age is a lot lower, and people, unlike America, know how to behave when drinking alcohol. But like, I go to an Aldi and they're here in America and there isn't actually any alcohol being sold at those stores. And then also the grading scale on the food. We need that here. That's something that I honestly really liked. I don't know if, personally, if I would pay attention to it too much, because, I mean, I obviously know what's good for me, but it's good for people who don't necessarily cook for themselves a lot, to know what is in something, and if they should pick something else. Something that my mom also thought of when we got back to the US and we were shopping at an Aldi here is we have a lot more canned food, and in Germany there's a lot more fresh produce available to purchase, which I think is nice, but obviously being here, it's a bigger country, so things being shipped obviously don't last and they tend to spoil, or there's a lot of preservatives added to them. Alright, now I'm going to talk about hotels and hostels that I've stayed in, and I now know the difference between a hotel and a hostel since staying in both, We mainly stayed in hostels. The first night was a hostel, and with hostels, actually, you have to make your own bed. And it's usually just a bed and a bathroom. There's usually nothing else, and there usually is a community space in, like the first floor area, like where the check-in is. So pretty much there's no TV, there's no fridge, there's, nothing extra in the room. That's it. Unlike a hotel, where usually you'll get a fridge, you'll get a TV, all that stuff. We only got to stay at 2 hotels. We got to stay at one hotel in Fusen and one hotel in Kiefersfelden. And honestly, I think those were my favorite times that we were actually staying somewhere, because we had a TV in the room, and that is actually where I got to watch The Simpsons in German. Just a recap of all the places that I did go to. If you didn't watch the vlog, or you did watch it but it's been, around a month since I posted the vlog, I went to Cologne. I did a day trip to Kokum. I went to Würzburg. I did a day trip to Rothenburg, stayed in Fusen, Kiefersfelden, another day trip to Salzburg, and then I stayed in Munich and Nuremberg. Munich was by far my favorite because it was so big and there was literally so much to do. I went thrifting there. I went to the Aldi there for the first time. Like, there was literally so much to do, and my teacher said, like, you could literally spend, 2 weeks here and you still wouldn't be able to do everything. The city is just that big and there's just so much to do. Now moving on to things that I actually did while I was in Germany. I did go to Dachau, which is a concentration camp, which I didn't really address in the video. You're not really, supposed to do too much, out of the ordinary while you're there. You're just kind of supposed to walk around and, like, pay your respects to the people who unfortunately were killed there. And honestly, it wasn't too bad until me and my friend got to the back part where they were actually, people were actually killed. Like, I literally told my friend, like, feel sick, I need to get out of here. Like, this is just straight up awful. And just kind of after that, pretty much everyone was kind of bummed for the rest of the day. So I feel like it's a thing that everyone should go to, because obviously you don't want history to repeat itself, and you should realize that it's an actual tragedy that people, had to go through, and people are still suffering from that still today, with hate and everything. The next place that I went to was the Olympic Stadium. Unfortunately, when we went there, it was closed, the tower. And we didn't realize, but it's on the maps all over, and even if one of us checked our phone to look at it, it would have said it was closed. So we still got to go and look at the, the area and the grounds and all that, which was kind of cool. Next, we went to Neuschwanstein, which was literally one of the best things that we did. It was such a beautiful castle, and we got to hike around some of the lake there too. Unfortunately, obviously in the vlog there's no video of it because I couldn't take any pictures or video of the inside, so you just kind of have to go yourself to see just how wonderful that place is. Next, I went to the Cologne Cathedral, which, I don't know, you just kind of go in, you look around, you take your pictures, and you walk back out. To me, it wasn't too special. It was okay. I don't know. It was a church, pretty much. Next, we went to the Mozart Museum, which personally, as a person who loves classical music, I really enjoyed going to. There was a lot there of him. There was a lot of his hair in there, which I know I did point out in the vlog, but there was a lot of his hair. Chunks of his hair around in different display cases, which was just kind of off-putting. I don't know why they did that, but, whatever. On the way walking to his house, Mozart's house, which was where the museum was, we did actually get to pass Christian Doppler's house, which I thought was by far much cooler than the Mozart Museum. I wish we could have gone through there. Speaking of museums, the other museum that I went to was the Deutsche Museum. Obviously, I thought it was one of the best things also. It was all good, but it was also one of the coolest places that I went to. And that day we actually had the option to choose the museum or an art museum. Obviously, I was like, science museum sounds a lot cooler than looking at a bunch of random paintings. So yeah. I don't know if I can count this next one as, you know, but I went to Aldi. That wasn't, you know, on our itinerary what we were supposed to do, but when we had free time, my mom and I were like, we should go to Aldi. And I'm like, I know my way around. I can get back, you know, to where we're staying. So that's what we did. We looked up the nearest Aldi and we walked to Aldi. On the way there, we did also go thrifting for our dresses, our dirndls. So me and my mom got one, and we also brought one home for my sister to wear too. The next place that we went to was the Document Center, which was in Nuremberg. Well, obviously a little bit outside of it, which was another World War II place. And not too much to say about that personally. It was just kind of a lot of walking, and by that day, because that was our last full day, we were all kind of tired and wanting to go home at that point. So yeah. And the last place that we went to that I thought was actually kind of cool was a group of us went to a public swimming pool, and there were a lot of people there, and I thought it was also quite interesting that they have it sectioned off so you can choose to go like all inside or you can go outside. Obviously we went inside since some of us were kind of badly sunburned from the days before, and there was quite a bit to do in there, and the one that we went to that was also in Munich, but it was quite of an experience, I would say, being able to be in a pool and, you know, go down the water slides and stuff, which we all kind of needed after having those past couple days of just straight up walking and doing a bunch of activities. If you have any other questions about my trip or what I thought personally about the country itself, you can obviously leave a comment down below. But I would like to thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your morning, afternoon, or night, when and wherever you're watching this from. Bye bye!